There's this phrase that's so deep in our culture we barely even hear it anymore. We think of it as a phrase about endings, about loss, about finality. But what if we've been missing the point the whole time? What if it's not actually about an ending at all? Let's take a closer look. We've all heard these words, right? They're usually spoken at funerals, in these really quiet, reflective moments, and they just carry a certain weight. They feel heavy, like a full stop at the very end of a sentence. And that heaviness, it usually leads us to one conclusion, that we're kind of insignificant, that we come from nothing and we go back to nothing. But what if that's a total misreading? What if this phrase isn't some declaration of worthlessness, but is actually a promise of renewal? That's the big question we're going to dive into. Okay, so first things first, let's just acknowledge why we think the way we do. There's a really good reason this phrase is so tangled up with finality and sadness. It's all about the context we're used to. Because we almost only hear ashes to ashes, dust to dust in these super somber settings, it's basically become shorthand for our own mortality. It feels like this grim reminder that life is fragile and, just ends in erasure. But what if the very context we're so used to is actually hiding a much, much deeper meaning? All right, so let's pivot here. Let's completely reframe this whole narrative, because this isn't a story about a one-way street to nowhere. It's actually about being part of a huge, continuous, and frankly, beautiful cycle. And this is where that shift in perspective really clicks. See, what we've been taught to view as a final ending is really part of a cycle. What feels like some kind of punishment is actually a form of realignment. And what looks like total erasure is, in fact, a transformation. It's not about losing something, it's about changing form. And that's really the heart of it. This isn't about being wiped out. It's about returning to where we came from. It's telling us that our lives aren't some separate, isolated thing. No, we're part of the exact same cycles that guide the seasons, the land, even the stars. We don't just disappear. We get reshaped and returned to the source. Now, to really get this, we've got to look closer at the two key words in the phrase, ashes and dust. Their true meaning is so much richer and more powerful than you might think. We tend to think of ash as just the useless stuff left over after a fire. But in the natural world, ash is like gold. It enriches the soil, it provides the nutrients for new things to grow. It is not an ending, it's preparation. Ashes literally carry the memory of what was, and they make the future possible. They're a symbol of transition, not a symbol of being erased. And what about dust? It's not a symbol for being worthless or dirty. Dust connects us directly back to the planet, to the soil, to the very matter of the earth. It's a statement of where we came from, a reminder that we are fundamentally part of this world, not just visitors passing through. Think about it like this. Our bodies themselves are kind of like those ashes. They are living archives. They hold the history of our families, our joys, our sorrows, our hard work. Memory isn't just up in our heads. It lives in our flesh and bones. So the return to dust, that's the return of that entire incredible archive to the greater story. Okay, so let's see how this all comes together in a real-world practice. The ritual of Ash Wednesday, where this phrase is often spoken, isn't really about guilt. It's about consciously stepping over a line into a moment of change. Ash Wednesday marks what's called a liminal moment, a sacred threshold. It's a deliberate pause. It's a space between our ordinary, everyday time and a period of intentional preparation. So it's not a day of doom and gloom. It's an invitation to just stop, take a breath, and consciously choose which way we're headed. So what's the whole point of hitting pause like this? Well, it creates the space we need for reflection. It's a chance to name impermanence, but without being afraid of it. It opens a path for humility. And maybe most importantly, it invites us to recalibrate, to check our own inner compass, and maybe adjust our course a little. And this recalibration, it's an active process. It's a conscious choice to release the habits and the burdens that just aren't sustainable. It's a return to the things that truly nourish and give us life. And it's a commitment to remember our connection to everything that holds us, the land, our community, and our own spirit. All of this brings us down to a simple but wow, incredibly profound final question that this ancient phrase is asking every single one of us. I mean, just listen to that journey. It's a complete cycle. We come from the earth, we are transformed by the fires of life, we return to the earth, and then, from that very same earth, new life emerges. This is a story of beautiful, unbroken continuity. And so, this is the question we're left with. And it isn't meant to make you feel small, it's actually meant to ground you. Because when you know what you're made of, earth and memory and stardust, you know your place in a cycle that is far grander and way more hopeful than any simple ending. It's not the final word, it's a starting point. Thanks for exploring this with me.